What is the most powerful chapter, paragraph, or sentence you have ever read in a book?
How could they have killed themselves? They had everything. But they didn't. They didn't have the cure for an illness that convinced them they were better off dead. Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson.
In the beginning, the universe was created. This made a lot of people very angry and has been widely regarded as a bad move.
It has always seemed strange to me. The things we admire in men, kindness and generosity, openness, honesty, understanding and feeling, are the concomitants of failure in our system. And those traits we detest, sharpness, greed, acquisitiveness, meanness, egotism and self-interest, are the traits of success. And while men admire the quality of the first, they love the produce of the second. John Steinbeck, Cannery Row.
Not only have you been lucky enough to be attached since time immemorial to a favored evolutionary line, but you have also been extremely miraculously fortunate in your personal ancestry. Consider the fact that for 3.8 billion years, a period of time older than the Earth's mountains and rivers and oceans, every one of your forebears on both sides has been attractive enough to find a mate, healthy enough to reproduce, and sufficiently blessed by fate and circumstances to live long enough to do so. Not one of your pertinent ancestors was squashed, devoured, drowned, starved, stranded, stuck fast, untimely wounded, or otherwise deflected from its life quest of delivering a tiny charge of genetic material to the right partner at the right moment in order to perpetuate the only possible sequence of hereditary combinations that could result, eventually, astoundingly, and all but briefly in you. A short history of nearly everything, Bill Bryson.
Really, the whole paragraph is good, but in particular. If people bring so much courage to this world, the world has to kill them to break them, so of course it kills them. The world breaks everyone and afterward many are strong at the broken places. But those that will not break it kills. It kills the very good and the very gentle and the very brave impartially. If you are none of these, you can be sure it will kill you too, but there will be no special hurry. Ernest Hemingway, A Farewell to Arms.
At the end or near end of The Hobbit, Gandalf speaks to Bilbo about how Saruman believes in a strong power that keeps evil at bay, but Gandalf says that it's the everyday actions of regular people that help keep the world a better place. Tolkien was a legend.
Alright then, I'll go to hell. Huck Finn. Huck has been led to believe it would be sinful to help his friend Jim, a runaway slave. In this chapter, Huck finds his own moral compass and decides to do what he feels is the right thing, even though others have told him he would go to hell for it.
It's difficult in times like these. Ideals, dreams and cherished hopes rise within us, only to be crushed by grim reality. It's a wonder I haven't abandoned all my ideals. They seem so absurd and impractical. Yet I cling to them because I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. The Diary of Anne Frank. Or, anything Anne Frank wrote by the near end of her diary. I was a walking fountain reading that.
The most important step a man can take. It's not the first one, is it? It's the next one. Always the next step, Delener. Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson.
And this one from Terry Pratchett. Men at arms. The reason that the rich were so rich, Vimes reasoned, was because they managed to spend less money. Take Boots, for example. He earned $38 a month plus allowances. A really good pair of leather boots cost $50. But an affordable pair of boots, which were sort of okay for a season or two and then leaked like hell when the cardboard gave out, cost about $10. Those were the kind of boots Vimes always bought, and wore until the soles were so thin that he could tell where he was in Ankh-Morpork on a foggy night by the feel of the cobbles. But the thing was that good boots lasted for years and years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that'd still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while the poor man who could only afford cheap boots would have spent $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet. This was the Captain Samuel Vimes, Boots, theory of socioeconomic unfairness.
And do not walk on the earth arrogantly. You can neither penetrate the earth, nor can you reach the mountains in height. Quran. Lots of other examples, but this is the first to cross my mind.
At the end of To Kill a Mockingbird, when Scout looks out at the neighborhood from the Radley porch. A boy trudged down the sidewalk dragging a fishing pole behind him. A man stood waiting with his hands on his hips. Summertime, and his children played in the front yard with their friend, enacting a strange little drama of their own invention. It was fall, and his children fought on the sidewalk in front of Mrs. Dubose's. fall, and his children trotted to and fro around the corner, the day's woes and triumphs on their faces. They stopped at an oak tree, delighted, puzzled, apprehensive. Winter, and his children shivered at the front gate, silhouetted against a blazing house. Winter, and a man walked into the street, dropped his glasses, and shot a dog. Summer, and he watched his children's heart break. Autumn again, and Boo's children needed him. Atticus was right. One time he said you never really know a man until you stand in his shoes and walk around in them. Just standing on the Radley porch was enough. The last two lines especially get me every time.
From Infinite Jest. The so-called psychotically depressed person who tries to kill herself doesn't do so out of quote, hopelessness, or any abstract conviction that life's assets and debits do not square. And surely not because death seems suddenly appealing. The person in whom its invisible agony reaches a certain unendurable level will kill herself the same way a trapped person will eventually jump from the window of a burning high-rise. Make no mistake about people who leap from burning windows. Their terror of falling from a great height is still just as great as it would be for you or me standing speculatively at the same window just checking out the view, i.e., the fear of falling remains a constant. The variable here is the other terror, the fire's flames. When the flames get close enough, falling to death becomes the slightly less terrible of two terrors. It's not desiring the fall, it's terror of the flames. And yet nobody down on the sidewalk, looking up and yelling, "Don't," and "Hang on," can understand the jump. Not really. You'd have to have personally been trapped and felt flames to really understand a terror way beyond falling. Made all the more powerful and disturbing to me by the fact that David Foster Wallace, the author, killed himself after suffering from depression for something like 20 years.
So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby. While I'm not a pessimist, this line really stays with me. Fitzgerald is buried in Rockville, Maryland, and it's powerful to see this quote on his grave marker.
I give you the end of the house at Pooh Corner by A. Milne. So they went off together. But wherever they go, and whatever happens to them on the way, in the enchanted place on top of the forest a little boy and his bear will always be playing. Read that to my child when they were about 3 years old. I cried. And cried and cried and cried and cried. They had to go and get my wife because Daddy won't stop crying.
One does not establish a dictatorship in order to safeguard a revolution. One makes the revolution in order to establish the dictatorship. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command.
God does not play dice with the universe, he plays an ineffable game of his own devising, which might be compared, from the perspective of any of the other players, i.e. everybody, to being involved in an obscure and complex variant of poker in a pitch-dark room, with blank cards, for infinite stakes, with a dealer who won't tell you the rules, and who smiles all the time. Good omens. Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman.
Stand in the ashes of a trillion souls and ask if honor matters. The silence is your answer.
He knew only that his child was his warrant. He said, "If he is not the word of God, God never spoke." Cormac McCarthy, The Road.
What can the harvest hope for, if not the care of the reaper man? There are so many others from Pratchett. The passage about boots from one of the Vimes books is also a good one.
Can't wait for the RIM14 and this is deep responses if this blows up.
He loved Big Brother.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to subscribe to Upvote for the best quality content every day.